Mythos Busters, investigating the mystery, monsters, and madness of Arkham Horror, the card game.
Hello and welcome to episode 143 of Mythos Busters. I'm Sean, and joining me tonight, it's a tight crew. Life has gotten the best of many of us on Mythos Busters for various reasons. So tonight it's just me, and it's also Ian. Hey, Ian.
Hello.
Boy, it's been a while since we've done a Sean and Ian joint.
I know. Tight Crew was the name of my hip-hop squad back in the 90s.
How many of you carried your own boombox?
I mean, they were just everywhere back then.
And spare flattened cardboard for breakdancing. Let's kind of assume breakdancers carry that around with them, right?
Yeah, at all times. Just pull it out of your backpack.
Fantastic. Well, despite the low numbered crew, wow, there was a better way to say that, but I couldn't find it. We're going to have a great show for you guys tonight. We're going to get caught up on our normal intros. We got a little bit of news to catch up on. And then our discussion topic tonight, we are going to continue our dive into the Scarlet Keys player cards. And I believe tonight we're covering Darrell and Kymani. Is that accurate to say?
That is correct, yes.
And I have played them both this time, so I'll be a lot more useful than I was in our last episode.
That always helps.
But yeah, so as a quick reminder, we do our new episode format, and we do all of our episodes live in our Discord. So if you ever feel like hopping in and listening live, please feel free and invited to do so. That's mythosbusters.g. I don't have our custom URL memorized, and I really should. Custom invite. It is discord.gg/mythosbusters.
There we go.
Please come join us. Otherwise, my flailing in front of a live audience will be for naught. Let's see here. On top of that, please remember that among all the other things we have going on, we do plan to do a house rules episode in early 2023. So we are collecting house rules from you all. If you want to send it in via the Mythos Busters hotline, you can call us and leave us a voicemail at 203-493-6984. Otherwise, you can send it to us via Gmail. It's an old man thing to say, but it feels like email is the slow format for communication nowadays, which is weird.
That's true.
I remember a time when it was the bee's knees. Not to show my age or anything.
Yeah, I feel it's like one of the slowest ways to get a hold of me. Like Discord's probably the fastest in case anyone needs to ever get a hold of me.
Followed by text.
Yes. But yeah.
Then an actual phone call.
Those don't happen,
depending on who you are. Depending on who you are. Like, you know. Some people get the automatic pickup, but most people get the glance and set down.
Yeah, this is correct.
And it's nothing personal. I just hate talking on the phone. Yep. Anyway, send in your house rules to us. We plan to talk about that in early 2023. All right. Well, before we dive into anything else, let's talk a little bit of Arkham. Ian, what have you been playing lately?
I've actually been playing some Arkham, which is always good. Because
Color me shocked.
A little product called the Scarlet Keys campaign expansion has come out since the last time we recorded. I think it wasn't out the last time we recorded, if I remember right. Yeah, so
that's correct.
Been digging into that and really enjoying it so far. I still haven't finished my first campaign yet, just because stuff's been busy, but I think I've played 4 or 5 scenarios. Can't remember. Maybe I'm about to be in the 5th. But yeah, really enjoying the whole map mechanic and the choose your own path, choose your own adventure. So for my kind of face check play, as I usually do, I usually start my face check with whatever the rogue is in the box solo. So I'm running a solo Kymani, which is fitting for this episode. It's going okay. It's really alternating. it's kind of like Star Trek movies where they'll have one really good movie and one movie that everyone kind of pans. Like that's how my campaign's going, where I'll have one really good resolution and the next scenario I'll just tank. So
yeah, it's evens and odds, right? Like all the
yes.
odd numbered Star Trek movies are great and all the even ones suck.
It's other way around, but yes.
Is it the other way around?
Yeah,
Okay, see,
yeah,
I'm a
evens
fake
are
Star
the
Trek
good
fan.
ones, yeah.
I've literally only ever seen TNG
Mm.
and the J.J. Abrams movies.
Sure. So it's supposedly a hidden pocket Kymani deck. That's what I named it, but ironically, I haven't gotten the hidden pocket in play once the entire campaign, just because I've never been in a position where it would be useful. So it's a little bit of a misnomer, but it's fine. Yeah, I don't think there's anything really crazy about the deck, except for I recently upgraded into Trigger Man in conjunction with 25 automatic. So if you don't remember what Trigger Man does, listeners out there, it's just a new player card where when it enters play, you can attach an illicit asset to it, and then you can exhaust the Trigger Man to basically use the action on that card. And you gotta spend a resource because you gotta pay the Trigger Man.
And is it only fight actions?
No.
Like what else would you put on Trigger Man besides the obvious gun?
It's any action ability on the illicit asset, so it could be like a lockpicks potentially. Although in general, I wouldn't do that because usually your rogues will have a better, because basically the Trigger Man uses a base of 4, so it has to be something where the investigator isn't better at it than the Trigger Man. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but to get the most out
give him liquid courage, then he's just your wingman.
There you go. Yeah,
just brought along your drinking buddy.
So it's mostly meant to be for the gun, but yeah, you could in theory. I'm sure there's other rogues who might use it for other purposes. I could see if they are not as great in move stats, but and then other than that, I've also started a kind of two-handed campaign, which I'm just through one scenario in Scarlet Keys. So I'm going to be running that kind of concurrently with my other campaign, but it's further back, obviously. So that one I'm running Darrell because I also wanted to play Darrell before we talked about him. So I got Darrell on one side and then a Battle Mage Akachi on the other side. Yeah.
What's Akachi's loadout?
So Akachi's loadout, I am doing a build which is the double arcane research down the rabbit hole, like give me all the XP build.
The XP whirlpool.
Yep. So after the first scenario, I had like 5 XP, so I got like one of the Azure Flame upgraded for free, which felt good. And then I'm running the Runic Axe in there, so it's basically like attack spells plus Runic Axe plus the Living Ink. So yeah, I so far am liking it a lot, and I think it's gonna be even better in the upgraded form. So I've just seen a little glimpse of its potential, but it's been a while since I played Akachi, and I think there's like a lot of cards now that really, I mean, anything with charges really is
yeah
in her wheelhouse, but yeah.
But I agree with your choice of axe, because I've long been a defender of Enchanted Blade in Akachi. I think if you start with a base 3 combat in a Mystic, that's totally workable for some of the Mystic stuff. What's your plan for upgrading the axe?
Well, I have taken one of the upgrades so far, which is the one where it you recharge 2 instead of 1. Sure. And then I'm not sure,
just an engine for Spirit Speaker or whatever.
Yeah, and just in general, like I actually think like the base, and because she is the fighter, like Darrell's going to be doing all the clue getting, as you might imagine. Like this is like really a pure killer, pure clover build, even though I tend these days to run like 2 flexy investigators and 2-handed. This is kind of the more old school, but yeah, so I think with the axe, like, I'm kind of just happy with the inscriptions that are there, which is extra combat, extra damage. So I'm probably gonna grab after this one. I'm just trying to pull up the inscriptions here so I can remember. Potentially the inscription of glory, where it like heals a damage or heals a horror. Would be one that I would pick up, and maybe the one where you can imbue the axe with like 2 different inscriptions at once. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Cool. How about the ink? What are you doing with the ink? Are you going to get the one where I assume you went willpower for your first stat?
No, I'm actually using combat.
Oh, you went combat. Yeah. Atta boy.
Yeah.
Way to go, not vanilla.
Yeah, it's basically meant to kind of feed into the axe play is the main reason why Living Ink is in there.
You want to know how I got these scars?
Yeah. It's the tatted battle mage Akachi build. That's what we're going for. Yeah. So that.
And what are you going to upgrade with Living Ink then?
I think looking at the Living Ink inscriptions, I gotta pull those up again too. Well, the one I want to grab is the one I like the subtle depiction where you can choose not to remove a charge. That one is really important to me in general for Living Ink because I don't like having to time when you play it out, and then because you don't want to like lose charges when you don't really need it. So I like being able to choose the turns where it's kind of on or not.
Being able to play red light, green light with that is pretty important.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's only a 1 coster, so that's worth it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to see. Obviously, getting another skill in there, like getting the willpower in there along with the combat, would make sense. I'm not sure what else really. Those are kind of the big ones on the top of my list. Yep.
Interesting. That's one I haven't played with yet. Like, there's only so many. Okay, so the upgradable cards, the customizable cards are a lot to play with, and even I can confirm this. Even after you've played through a whole ass campaign with one of them, you still feel like there's shit you didn't see. And that's really weird. I'm not used to feeling that way about a card before, but there's just so many permutations of some of these that seem interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I love the customizable cards, and on the other hand, they are big XP sucks. So it's a little difficult to one, like try out everything you want to, and then B, potentially it kind of takes away from some of the other upgrades you want to do. But that's one of the nice things about this particular build, where you're just going like all in on arcane research and down the rabbit hole, because that's lowering the XP cost of everything. So, well, not everything, but the stuff that Akachi's interested in upgrading. I'll say that.
Right. Cool. Well, for my part, I think the main thing I'd like to talk about is that Justin and I did our face check play of the Scarlet Keys campaign as an Iron Man, all in one day, and oh boy, that was a good time. We did it with the Edge of the Earth, and like we have now vowed that every time one drops, we're just gonna find a way to square a day off. And
sounds so
God,
fun.
it was really good, and open invite. If ever you can just zip over to Minnesota.
Yep.
But so he played Vincent, and he played kind of a very straightforward, just kind of rounded Vincent. Had a really good time with that. And then I played one Charlie Kane, and oh boy, I had so much fun with that deck. So you know how like my thing is I just love the investigators that play so differently to other investigators. No, Charlie is just 100% that. I know we talked a lot about him last time. But I went into this deck with, let's see here, how many allies am I running? So I'm actually a little bit lighter on allies than I expected. I've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, I have 10. I have 10 allies. I say that's light, but If you said I have 10 allies in any other deck, people would just look at you a certain type of way.
No, I'm trying to pull up my Charlie to see how many are in mine. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12. Okay, I only have 2 more than you.
Oh, see, lighter. Yep.
Yeah.
I knew it. But anyway, the main thrust of this deck is that I really wanted to see what Charlie can do with one of my favorite, and spoiler alert for an upcoming segment, underrated, I feel, cards, and that's Summoned Hound. So I took Mystic. No, that's here. I took Guardian and Survivor as my 2 classes. His Guardian obviously has some fun stuff. I took Motivational Speech. And then with the Survivor access, used a Chance Encounter and Flare as my ways to get my Summoned Hounds into play without putting the weakness into my deck. That said, again, a little bit spoiler alert for later on, I think the weakness isn't that bad, but when you can avoid it, like, why wouldn't you? And Survivor can, so here we are. But oh my god, so I love Summoned Hound anyway, and then you throw Bonnie Walsh into that equation. She's so good. So you're talking, if you get 1 Summoned Hound out, you're talking 2 additional actions to either investigate at a base 5 or attack at a base 5. And if you can get Bonnie and both Summoned Hounds out, that is 3 extra actions to investigate or fight each turn. So, like, I meant to be well-rounded. I geared a little bit more toward cluing. But I was able to take medium-sized enemies out, no problem.
Sure.
So let's see here. My ally spread was Field Agent, Gregory Gree, Lab Assistant, Miss Doyle, Tetsuo Mori, and the Black Cat, and Summoned Hound. So that was my ally spread. So I was able to get all 5 classes in there. So I thought to myself, well, what a great time for some synergy cards. And I was right. Holy cow. I took Gang Up, which, first of all, Gang Up, so good. So good. Like, even if you've only got 2 classes in play, you're already dealing with levels of like, I've got a plan type. Oh my god, what's the word I'm looking for? Acceleration, compression.
Sure. Yeah. Damage, compression.
Yeah, but then if you've got all 5, in play, it's so good. You can demolish things as Charlie with a single event, and then on top of that, possibly the best flavor text in the game. That famous line from Spider-Man: "You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us."
Yeah.
And they're just curb stomping a werewolf. It is just nothing not to love about that card. And then on top of that, I also did Strength in Numbers, because that card again became like a curseless Promise of Power most of the time. And I run Promise of Power in like literally every deck that can take it. So yeah, pretty great. Yeah, had a very, very fun time with that deck.
Charlie's a lot of fun. I still need to play the whole campaign, but the standalone scenarios I've run with him, which is so much fun.
Yeah, so we had a really good time with it. I want to talk in detail about what happened, but we're not there yet. We can't yet. But needless to say, there is some really, really cool shit happening in the Scarlet Keys, and also, my free time after the holidays gently weeps with how long it's going to take us to get Dissonant Voices done.
Yes. Yeah, that is going to be quite the journey. There's a lot of text in there. Which
I suppose probably I should have put this in a more official spot, but to any of you listening who subscribe for Dissonant Voices and also listen to the podcast, thank you, first of all. I really wish that this box had dropped any time other than when it dropped, because as mentioned, I'm a little busy nowadays. The rest of us are a little crazy this holiday season. We haven't gotten a whole lot done by way of Dissonant Voices, but we're going to be hitting it hard and heavy once the holidays are over. So hopefully look for Dissonant Voices early in 2023 for Scarlet Keys.
Yeah, I usually
And
find
Fortune and Folly.
the hardest. Oh yeah, yep. Gotta record
That's
that
all you,
as well.
baby.
Yep. Yeah. Oh man, and I wrote so much for Fortune and Folly too.
Yeah, you did.
I pretty much hit
Good job, asshole.
the page limit for rules and text on that thing. But yeah, I feel like the hardest part with now that we're in this new box model is just getting started on doing the recording, and then once the ball is rolling, then it rolls. But yeah.
We'll
We'll
taking
get
those
there.
first few steps up the mountain are always the hardest.
Yeah. Yes. How long did it take you all to do the run through Scarlet Keys?
Yeah, good question. I think we were just under 12 hours.
Was that
We are
faster than Edge of the Earth, or about the same? I don't remember.
Yeah, it was faster because we didn't fully finish Edge of the Earth. With Edge of the Earth, we got through Heart of Darkness, Heart of Madness.
I don't remember what it's
What's
called.
the last one?
It's probably Heart of Madness.
Yeah, we got through part 1 of it, and then at that point we just had to call it because it was so late, and we left the last one for another day. But we finished it this time. Obviously, it was our first time through. It was our face check. We made some mistakes. We probably could have ended up playing more scenarios, like actual scenarios, as opposed to kind of some of the checkpoints and stuff that's purely story based and text based on a different playthrough. But I think we ended up playing 5 or 6 scenarios overall.
Yeah, I think that's probably around where I'll end for my face check, around about 6 scenarios. It seems like.
Oh man, and plotting this shit out for Iron Man, I thought like Innsmouth and Edge of the Earth was making my head spin. I cannot even imagine trying to figure out like the quote unquote optimal path through this damn campaign. It's going to be so intense.
Yeah, because the big
I'll
thing
leave
for
that
me
to you and Scott.
is like, what is even the optimal path? Like, is it the
Yeah.
fastest one, the least scenarios, the most scenarios, the best like resolutions? I don't know.
I mean, I suppose like, not spoilers, just mechanical. Like you, at a certain point, pretty early on, you can rush to the end if you want. So yeah, I don't know. Just do boss rush mode for Iron Man and then get up and watch everyone else play.
That's an option.
This will be what BusterCon 2025 if we keep on our current cadence.
Oof.
All right, because 2023 is going to be Innsmouth.
Yep.
Then Edge of the Earth. Then
yeah.
2025.
Is the world still going to be around then, Sean?
I don't know the fuck's going to happen next week, man.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But, hope springs eternal.
Yep.
So anyway, so that was a really good time. We finished the whole thing. I cannot wait. I started up my own campaign. I haven't had as much time as I would like to actually sink my teeth into it. I made a Darrell deck and I made an Amina deck. And the Darrell deck is way better. I think I'm going to make some pretty heavy modifications to the Amina deck. Normally, like you, Ian, I jump straight to the Mystic in the box, but this time around, like I have been scratching my head at what the hell to do with Amina.
Yeah. There's a reason why we are holding her towards the end of reviewing the investigators for Scarlet Keys.
On the off chance that one of us fucking figures her out.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with 3 statters to begin with, and then you put an all 3 statter in the class that's hey, have 1 stat, please.
Yeah.
and it just becomes a little bit harder to suss out, I think.
Yeah.
I'll get it eventually, though. There are some cool things that I had going on with that build, so I'm trying out the empty arcane slots build is what I'm going for. So
I think
like
that's
my
what I
early
was going for
upgrades-
as well, but I have the build, but I haven't actually played it yet.
It's the most interesting shit in the purple, among the purple stuff in the box, in my opinion. At least, again, just plays so differently from everything else. So Astral Mirror. My next upgrades are going to be the accessory that lets you gain extra arcane slots, the jar, right? That's what's that one called. It's going to be at least another month before I have all the titles memorized.
I know there's a binding jar. I think it is. Is that binding
jar? That sounds right. Yeah. So my next plan is binding jar. So then I've got the Eldritch. Oh God, this is going to be painful. I talk about this deck. I've only played a game with it.
Yeah.
All right. Let me just pull up the list so I can stop making this painful. So I've got Eldritch Initiation, which is 1 cost. For each arcane slot you have, draw a card. For each filled arcane slot you have, choose and discard a card. The idea being that eventually I'll get to a place where I have 4 empty arcane slots, so that's just a 1 cost, draw 4. And then Explosive Ward, which is just you pay X up to how many empty slots you have, and do direct damage. To an enemy engaged with you is the important part of that card. I found out too late into one of my games. But anyway, so that's what I'm doing there. Straight up ignoring the Renfield taboo.
Yeah.
Come for me, Arkham Police. It's fine. I don't know. I'll report back when I've had a few more games with that one under my deck. I'm not sure what that deck is doing, but yeah. Darrell is pretty straightforward by comparison, so that's been going pretty well.
Yeah, it takes some decks require some tweak. I didn't mention it with my Kymani face check, but I actually kind of had a bad time with my particular deck build the first run through the scenario, and I said, forget it, I don't want to go through this whole campaign this way. So I actually rebuilt the deck, played through the first scenario again, and was happy with the changes I made, and I got exactly the same result. So at that point I was like, okay, we're just gonna roll with it now. But
if you had a better time doing it, then that's still a W.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, okay, I don't feel bad about redoing it because it was the same result. But I have been known to do that sometimes with a campaign. Like if I just think that it's going to be a terrible time in the deck, I'm not gonna, like, my time is precious enough. I'm not gonna drag myself through it. I'll just replay the first scenario again. I'll draw my weakness again as if it's really starting a whole new campaign, and just do it that way.
Yeah, speaking of, so you know how last time I talked about me and Nick started up a remote play campaign, the Forgotten Age, and we just got absolutely trounced by the first 2 scenarios. Well, my other friend, Kip, who's been a special guest on this show a very long time ago.
He has, yeah.
For you old heads, if you remember the Kip episode.
It's a deep cut.
I finally, after years, got him to play Arkham again with me, because we've been working our way through the Souls series, and we finally capped Sekiro. So I'm like, motherfucker, you're playing Arkham with me now. So I let him pick campaigns, and sure enough, he picked the Forgotten Age to start with. And I'm like, all right, well, here we go.
What, you want the Dark Souls of campaigns?
Yes, exactly that. I'm pretty sure me describing it that way was what made him pick it. So I made him a Gunslinger Mark deck, and I made for myself a Trish deck. So I'm thinking, like, that is a power duo, right? Like that is a good combination of investigators for 2-handed TFA. Again, I don't know what it is with TFA, but we got blown out in the Untamed Wilds. We drew like -5 tentacle, -5, -3. It was just like everything, like, it got flooded with snakes that we tried not to kill. You know, that's the thing with snakes, is like you try not to kill the first couple that come out, but then by the time you draw your 3rd snake that's on this small board, you're like, all right, well, I guess we got to kill a few. And then you're already behind the 8 ball. So we got defeated. And as we were kind of debriefing from that game, I was like, man, I you know, the like 31st and 32nd card in your deck that ended up getting cut was Warning Shot.
Yeah.
And he's like, what was Warning Shot? And I pull up Warning Shot and show it to him. He's like, oh, you son of a bitch, that would have saved us so many times.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, we each have like 2 trauma now because of course we didn't take blankets, so we went into the interlude. We were just like, this is going to be a miserable time. Let's run it back. So we played it again and did just as poorly.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so like even knowing that campaign like the back of my hand, that campaign can still just punch you straight in the mouth.
Yeah.
And there's just not a whole lot you can do about it.
Listeners to my Abandoned and Alone series can attest to that.
Yes.
I have the scars to prove
it. This tooth has never gone back.
Yep.
But I am going to do a thing now where I, based on the way he wanted to play that deck, I had it as just kind of like a general Mark Gunslinger deck. Couple, it was like a bandolier deck. So it was going to be upgrading into a couple of bigger weapons. But the way he ended up playing, I wanted to throw custom modifications and some other upgrades and make it like a Voltron gun deck. So I'm breaking the rules. We're keeping our results from the Forgotten Wilds, but I changed our decks a bit to actually just like play better. My Trish deck was interesting. I'm trying to do some weird shit with all of the Seeker stuff that puts clues back on locations in order for Trish with damning evidence to pick them up again later. It's a really cool deck concept that I think will sing when it sees the hands of a player smarter than me. I have always held the belief that I'm a way better deck builder than I am a player, and I think that the start of this campaign definitely saw that to be true. So I'm dialing it in. It's a cool idea. It's using Genet. Well, eventually it will use Genet. But like damning evidence and Genet and Ethereal Slip, and I think In the Know is going to be overkill, but we're going to see how we roll. But the whole idea is just kind of like get tricky with moving enemies around and grabbing clues from their locations and moving clues around as needed. And I don't know. We'll see if I ever figure it out. It's a cool idea.
Yeah, sounds fun. I have obviously it's a little bit different style because it's Darrell, but I'm running some of those like put clue back cards in Darrell. And because I'm only one scenario in, like I mentioned, with that particular pairing, so I don't have a good sense, but I'm excited for those cards. Obviously we'll talk more about them when we review those cards, but I like what it's doing for
really
Seeker.
Cool shit going on there.
Yeah. Because those were like the cards in Seeker, like usually Seeker has the really like strong stuff, but those were some of the the few Seeker cards where everyone was like, I don't love those. You know,
like I'm
quick
sorry, put
study.
clues back?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, these are my clues.
I think I'll be keeping them here. I think Quick Study is the one with the weird art, right? Where you have to like put the clue back and get like +3.
Yeah, Quick Study is Doogie Howser art.
Yeah. The kid wearing the adult
showing my age there too. for all 5 of you old men and women and NBs who remember Doogie Howser.
I remember. I can still hear the music. But yeah. Yeah,
because you're older than I am, Ian.
Oh, I know. I'm painfully aware of that fact.
But yeah, it's cool stuff. And then this coming week, Justin and I are going to start up a Dark Matter campaign, IRL, with listener and friend of the show, Chad. So looking forward to that. Had a really good time when Nick and I started it. We only got it's either 2 or 3. I think it was 3 scenarios in. So that'll be fun to actually finish this time. Yeah.
Yep. Just make sure no one else playing with you gets hired by FFG and you should be fine.
I mean, I'm not good at it so far, so. Hey, remember when we were like, yeah, it's just the two of us. Are we gonna be able to go a full episode? Yeah, we're 37 minutes in and we haven't even got past check-in. So
there we
Ian,
go.
what's going on with patrons?
Okay. So first off, thanks to our board members. That's Chris B, Chris H, Chris M, and Chris U. Our conglomeration of Chris's: Morton, Jared, Ian, Kyle, Philip, Patrick, Abilio, Jesse, Chad, and Robert. Thanks so much for your huge support of the podcast, as always. And also a special shout out to a random patron this time around goes to Ori Morningstar. Thank you, Ori, for your support as well. I was just thrown off by the last name Morningstar because I was trying to figure out whether that was the real last name or not. Either way, it's a great name. If you haven't been to mythosmerch.com in a while, go check out mythosmerch.com and check out what we have to offer. Please send us any pictures or share any stories of spotting Mythos merchandise out in the wild, because that tickles us to no end. We don't have any new job titles to give out this time around, but of course, if you want your very own job title, you can always support us at the $5 level or above. But that's about it for now. Thank you all patrons for supporting us.
Woo-hoo. Yes, and I have to imagine that a lot of the newer, like, $1 patrons that we've gotten recently are probably here for Dissonant Voices. But in case you're new and are listening, thank you. Thank you for hopping on. It's an exciting time. I'm looking forward to having the Scarlet Keys done. Not looking forward to doing it, but having it done is going to be awesome.
Yeah, and if you have stumbled upon us and this is your first time listening and you don't know what Dissonant Voices is, that's where I guess it's worth mentioning, where we the Mythos Busters hosts, we record ourselves reading the campaign logs and campaign entries for each campaign. And you can put those on and listen while you're playing. And those are available on the fantastic Arkham Cards app, which is all up to date with Scarlet Keys. And it's amazing, as it always is.
The iconic Arkham Cards app.
Yeah, I mean, like, can you even play Arkham without the Arkham Cards app?
Zorba's a goddamn hero.
Yes.
Let me tell you what.
For sure. So we have integration with that. So while you're in Arkham Cards app, you can actually, if you're a patron, go in there and play the Dissonant Voices audio. And yeah, and $1 level, any level works for getting access to that.
Yeah. Let's see. Squidbeer asks, what level of bribery can we do to get y'all to do DV for the standalones? Caviar Tutors. Luckily, Squidbeer, we have done all of the standalones up to this point, except for Fortune and Folly, and Labyrinths of Lunacy. But let's all just pretend that doesn't exist, so we don't have to do Dissonant Voices for it. No one plays that in a setting that would use Dissonant Voices anyway. So,
yeah. I mean, if you want to send caviar to our doors anyway, I won't
yes.
No,
I mean, caviar optional. Shadow are expecting a full voice cast for the Scarlet Keys. You guys will be lucky if we pronounce the names correctly. Have you seen the character list? Good Lord.
That'll be a full production at that point.
It is a fully international cast list, and oh my god, looking at some of the names just has me sweating, because I don't know how half of them are pronounced. Network offers help with who is a linguist, by the way, with the language and names. Very careful. I very likely might take you up on that.
I mean, I really wish we could do like a BBC style old radio production, like they did one for The Hobbit back in the day, and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and those were all great.
We just set like that low static hum of that, the old radio tubes, just like underneath it all. Yeah. But anyway, so that's in the days to come. Looking forward to that. Oh yeah, Ian, the Fortune and Folly boss. It's your fault, so you get to pronounce his ass.
Yes, and the rest of them too.
That's true. All right, well, let's move it on then. So a little bit of news for you guys. It's all Buster news. Since things with FFG on the Arkham side are pretty freshly simmering down from the Scarlet Keys. So first, as we alluded to on the last episode, meme contest season is finally here. So send us your Arkham memes. But first, before you do that, if you haven't already, I would highly recommend going out to our YouTube channel and finding one of the episodes where we review and award memes on stream. Because there's something very special about dissecting like visual memes in a live conversational video format that just it deconstructs them in a way that's terrible and very fun to do and watch. So our first one we did with Maxine, and I'm pretty sure we did the second one with Maxine.
I think
Why is my memory failing me? I think she's shown up for all of them.
Yeah, I know I missed the last one. I think it was the last one I missed. So really hoping to be there for this one.
So send us your Arkham memes. Email them to mythosbusterspod@gmail.com. Make sure they are original Arkham memes of your own creation and that have not been submitted in years past. Pretty please. A limit of 5 submissions per entrant. 5 submissions being 5 memes. And we will accept submissions until January 20th, 2023. Again, with a reveal stream to be scheduled after that. And hopefully at least one, possibly more than one, very special guest to help us do that. And so check out the show notes and the website for more info. Ian, what's going on with BusterCon?
So BusterCon, first off, it's happening, which is that's the good news, and it's all good news. So the dates are May 18th through the 21st of next year, 2023. So May of next year, 18th through the 21st. We'll have lots more details to come, but at this point, we're just we have this crazy idea that we want to give people like plenty of advance notice. So
a radical thought, I know.
Yes, I know. It's just a crazy thought, but so that's what we're doing right now. So even though we don't have all the full details ready to announce yet, we just want to make sure everyone can set aside that time. Ask for your time off, whatever you need to do. But we'll have more details to come about, hotels and events and all, and tickets and all that good stuff.
We've got some fun ideas in the offing.
Yes, for sure. We've been talking about it a while, as you might imagine. Quite a while.
Only 2 full years.
Yes. And we do also want to gauge interest in the con and be able to plan accordingly, figure out who's planning on coming and some of those type of details. So if you're planning to attend, please fill out our attendance survey, which we will put in our show notes for this episode. Or if you're in our Discord channel, you can check the BusterCon 2023 channel, and it should be pinned there. So it's just a Google form. You should be able to go in there and fill it out, and it just helps us kind of figure out who's planning on coming. But yeah,
if you have any ideas or want to run events, definitely let us know too.
Yeah, that too.
We'll accept volunteers. We'll do that.
Yes. Yeah, I'm so excited for that. I mean, just judging by how Arkham Knights went, which wasn't necessarily our event, but thankfully,
wasn't it though? No. I mean, it kind of was.
Yeah,
but it also wasn't.
But the Game Center did involve us a lot in particular events and just different aspects of it. So all I'm saying is that was a great time and it went really well. So I can imagine with BusterCon where there's kind of free reign to do all kinds of stuff. It's going to be a great time.
Yeah. Imagine how it's going to be when we have both hands on the wheel, baby.
Yeah. Just imagine how many dead CCGs are going to be playing.
Yeah, welcome to BusterCon.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, looking forward to that. More details to come. Ian, I think we can finally start talking about our main Tupac. But 50 minutes in, we made up for it.
Yeah. No big deal.
So, tonight, let's start out with talking about one Kymani Joker Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be so kind as to read them?
I will. So Kymani Jones is the security consultant.
You forgot Joker.
Kymani Joker Jones, sure, is the security consultant. They have 3 willpower, 2 intellect, 2 combat, 5 agility. You love to see it. 8 health and 6 sanity. Free trigger, Zappy Boy, engage an exhausted enemy at your location. Reaction, when you attempt to evade an exhausted non-elite enemy, add your intellect to your skill value for this attempt. If you succeed by at least X, discard that enemy. X is that enemy's remaining health. Elder Sign effect +1. If there's an exhausted enemy at your location, you automatically succeed instead. And the deck building real quick is you get rogue cards, level 0 to 5, of course. Tool cards, level 0 to 4, which is interesting. And then your standard neutrals, level 0 to 5. But Kymani does get 5 additional XP to start the campaign.
What?
The only other person to get that is old Father Mateo.
Well, and Parallel Roland.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I always forget about old Parallel Roland. Yeah.
Easy to do. Okay, so in true Sean fashion, definitely read 70% of the card. Left that part out. My Kymani deck is owed. It is owed. Oh man! Oh no! It's a hyper physical shotcaster deck too. I could have done so much with it.
Oh no!
I'm such a moron. Oh no!
Wait, now I'm panicking. Did I include the 5
My
XP in
my shame?
We gotta frantically click at Arkham DB. It is actually very easy to miss just because it is so. Oh my god, I did not include it in mine either.
Oh, Ian, the Arkham Police, they're coming for us.
No.
With puppies and candy and 5 additional experience.
Oh, okay. I'll have to bring it back together to...
Ian, we've been podcasting on this game for 6 years, man. This is inexcusable.
In my face check campaign of a new campaign, no less, I forgot the 5 XP. Okay, so first things first, this is a PSA. Everyone, don't forget the 5 XP for Kymani when you're building your decks. That's the first thing.
Super clutch, especially if you're starting with a customizable card in your deck. Really good, turns out.
I will say I'm one to never lick a gift horse in the mouth. And this is the rogue class, my class. Kymani is an investigator who I could easily see becoming a favorite in the future. All that being said, I'm not sure the 5 XP is necessary. I think
I survived without it.
Yeah, the stat line on the abilities are strong enough that I wouldn't feel like, oh, Kymani really needs something more. But yeah, I won't turn it down. Well, apparently I did turn it down. Unwittingly turned
You didn't know it was on the table. I don't know if that's the same thing.
Yep.
Okay, but I agree with you. I love this stat line. This is an inverse of the Agnes stat line in Rogue, which makes it great. So many cool things going on. We should probably talk signatures as well.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So Grappling Hook is Kymani's signature. It is a 3-cost asset. It has an agility, an intellect. Oh, wow. I almost forgot what these icons were. Do I play Arkham? And a wild icon. It has item and tool traits. Kymani Jones deck only. Actions performed using Grappling Hook do not provoke attacks of opportunity. Double action exhaust Grappling Hook. Take up to 3 different basic actions from the following list in any order. Engage, evade, investigate, move. If you investigate, use your agility instead of your intellect. So turn 2 actions into 3 actions. That seems pretty good.
Yep.
And they're all actions that you're probably going to want to do on any given turn.
Yeah. I think there's 2 keywords there. One is different that you have to do. You can't just do the same action. And the other is basic. So you can't use like an evade on a event card or something, or an investigate action on an event card. But still good ability to have.
Yeah, because
mhm.
well, I'm on your average turn, if there's an enemy at your location, getting 3 out of this is easy.
Yes. Yeah.
But if you don't have an enemy at your location, like investigate move seems simple, but what do you do as your third action? You just leave it on the table, right?
Yeah, and I've honestly done that a lot in my solo run, where because especially in solo and especially let's just say because some of the mechanics that are in Scarlet Keys, not there are times where I don't necessarily need to use like some of the the engage or like the evade. So sometimes I'll just do double action, move, and investigate because I want to be able to use my agility instead of my intellect for the investigate, which is fine. I mean, if you didn't do that, it'd still be 2 actions to move and then investigate, so you're not like losing an action. You're just not getting the full value necessarily. But sometimes you want to be able to use your agility.
Yep. I mean, yeah, that's it. You might as well have taken 2 separate actions, but instead you get the substitution, which is a, modifiers aside, is a 3-point swing. So hell yeah.
Yep. And I mean, it's one of the things when you were talking about the stat line, like there was a time in this game where to have that like 2 intellect for a rogue would have been kind of killer, especially for solo. But there's so many tools, like obviously there's the grappling hook, which we just talked about, but there's more and more kind of tools. Of course, lock picks, there's the thieves kit, which are just letting you substitute the agility. So now you can just feasibly run that with no problem. And so, yeah, you can just like get an investigator that's dumping intellect and dumping combat and just pump it all to agility, and even 3 willpower for a rogue. I'm getting dizzy up here. It's so high.
Offensive. Like you might accidentally pass a willpower test with Kymani.
I know. There's been a few times where I'm like, okay, 2 willpower versus 3 willpower. I'm not used to that. Yeah.
So talking about Kymani's tool access, what do you think are some of the best pulls from that trait?
Yeah,
I'm just go ahead and look at what pulls there are from that trait.
Like from what I remember building it, I was mostly pulling from rogue and not using the tool access a ton. But let's see what the ones that kind of jump out. There's something like fingerprint kit is a tool.
Sure.
The problem there is it's using kind of the intellect instead of agility to investigate. But
yeah, I feel like we can do better than that.
Yeah, so that's why I kind of avoided that one. Let's see. Yeah, that's one of the problems is a lot of the tools are like seeker cards, which are using intellect for the investigation. You do have something like the old keyring, which is reducing the shroud instead, so potentially maybe that might be helpful.
I want to look at like dissection tools, but in Kymani, you're not actually defeating a lot of enemies.
Yeah.
So that's probably a pass.
I think I did take a look at that, and I was like about to include it, and then I was like, wait, it's using the defeat word, and Kymani is mainly discarding enemies. Yeah, so to be honest, I don't feel like the way we're at right now, the tool access doesn't give you a ton.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's where I landed. I just wanted to defer to someone who knew better than I did.
Yeah, like even Mariner's Compass, another one, but again, it's using intellect, which you can pump, but I just feel like when an investigator with Kymani, like I don't want to fiddle around with intellect, like that's not playing to my strengths.
How about the multi-tool? Like the multi-tool is okay, right? The pocket multi-tool.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty kind of variable. Like you can use it for any skill value, really. So much like a Swiss Army knife. Like you can use it for all kinds of uses. So yeah,
The murdered.
I think in like the multiplayer deck I brought to Arkham Knights, I did put Riot Whistle in there, which is a tool. Thinking like, hey, I want to be able to engage enemies and not use an action on it, so then I can do like Kymani's evade and then discard thing. Didn't really
a
get
weird
to...
investigator that you might engage the same enemy twice in a single turn collectively.
Yeah,
on your own.
Yeah, and that's more obviously a multiplayer thing because you're getting like enemies on other people that you need to like spend an action to engage with them more so than solo. So I could see something like Riot Whistle, but yeah. I feel like they're mostly like the rogue access, honestly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean it's interesting to see like the because we have so many flavors of deck building rules for investigators now, and the trait access one is either like a home run or kind of a wet fart for me, for most investigators.
Yeah.
Like there's very little in between. There's like does Rita have any good out of class tricks yet? I mean, I suppose she's got some rogue stuff, but
there's been some more lately. Like when Rita first came out, it was pretty slim pickings, but there's been more and more. So I don't know if it'll be similar where we get more tools, but I think traditionally tools seem like they've mostly been like intellect based, and lots of seeker stuff. So it's a little bit of a weird fit for Kymani currently.
Yeah. So what do you think are some good loadouts for Kymani? Like the Thieves Kit is obviously tailor made.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Obviously anything that's dealing with evading, because of the ability, which is based on evading. Kind of similar to Finn in that way, my favorite Finn. So like you could do something like pickpocketing, obviously, because you're going to be evading a lot anyway. Or let's see, I'm trying to think of what else could fit into that. Like, but the thing is, with you could either do pickpocketing or you could do like Lucky Cigarette Case, because since you have to succeed by a lot anyway with their ability to like discard an enemy if you succeed by a certain amount, so you could kind of go either way on that one potentially. One of the key cards for me in Kymani, which maybe doesn't stand out immediately, is Breaking and Entering. I like that card a ton.
Yeah, you
for
do.
Kymani. Just being able to add their agility to the intellect for the investigation, which is obviously good by itself, but then because then you can evade an enemy, so getting that enemy right where you want them for Kymani's ability.
Yeah, like particularly in like a solo Kymani build, like that single card does so much of what Kymani wants to do. That's crazy value
for sure, because it's just the action compression of like you get the clue but you evade it, so now you can use your free trigger engage to bring them back and then do another evade to get rid of them. So
I took this was my one Kymani campaign so far, was the TFA that I started with Nick, wherein I took In the Thick of It. Instead of taking my 5 free XP, my God, I'm never going to live that fucking down. I'm glad Scott's not here tonight.
I can't believe we both forgot it.
Hopefully it's a long time before he listens to this episode. And I'll know the moment he does, too. He'll be sliding right into my DMs. Anyway, but I, of course, took pickpocketing. Like, I know pickpocketing is just kind of a classic in most rogues that intend to evade. But with Kymani, since they're doing it so often, it seems pretty good. And then on top of that, stylish coat. So the idea is to upgrade pickpocketing, and then on a single evade, you get 2 resources and a card. It's like Easy Mark for free, except a lot of XP.
For sure. Yeah. Another card I like is Disguise, a newer Scarlet Keys card, which gives you +2 agility for evasion, which you might think to yourself, like, Kymani already has 5 agility, why you need more? Because when you want to use their ability to discard an enemy, you can only do it if you succeed by the enemy's remaining health, so you need to really get really high numbers. And so I kind of like Disguise just for that alone, just to get that +2. But it's also helped me that it keeps the enemy evaded if you succeed. It doesn't ready during the upkeep phase, so Disguise is another good one.
I mean, I play Slip Away quite a lot, so like a box full of Slipaways seems pretty good.
I'm just really love Kymani's ability. Like, maybe not too surprising that I like the rogue in this box, but not all rogues are created equal, and I haven't vibed with all of them, but Kymani really fits into that evade rogue style that I love. It's the reason I love Finn so much. And it's taking it in a new direction, though, if we can just straight up get rid of an enemy completely, which is huge. I think the only thing that's kind of somewhat similar that's existed is like Waylay and Survivor, where you're just being able to straight up discard it. But that obviously that's just like a one-time event versus having a whole investigator built around it. I'll say, I don't know what your experience is. I think the one weakness with Kymani, because I think the investigating isn't a problem, like between Thieves Kid and Lockpicks and the Hook. Like, investigating has gone well, evading obviously has gone well, actually being able to pass treacheries. It's only those situations where a scenario says, hey, you have to straight up kill this boss. That's where Kymani struggles for me, or kill whatever. Maybe it's not a boss, but it's just an enemy or something. In elite is essentially, because the Kymani's ability doesn't work against elites for obvious reasons. I mean, it would break scenarios if it could. So that's where I've struggled a little bit, and I've had to adapt my deck. That's why I'm like getting 25 automatics in there and like the Trigger Man that I talked about, because I've had to adjust a little bit and be like, okay, I need to bring more damage in here. And cards like Backstab, even just to, like, for most enemies you'll be able to handle it, but like when the scenario forces you to kill an elite, that's the one place I think Kymani struggles a little bit.
Yeah, I included Backstab. That was one of the primary reasons I went with Hyperphysical Shotcaster. Because when you get Rail Shooter on that, you can fight for 2 damage with any skill, and like, that's pretty good. Like, that's just a 45 for agility. So
I still need to play with the Shotcaster. That's next on my list.
I need to continue that campaign so I can actually see it, because like there's some cool stuff the Shotcaster can do.
Yeah.
Another Kymani card that I really like. Okay, so first of all, one thing that I found is that when you use Kymani's ability to discard an enemy, remember that you're adding your intellect. I have done the math on that evade test so many times and have come up short on the health, because I don't remember. Well, sometimes I just fall short, and that happens. But a lot of times it's because I don't remember that you add your intellect for that test. And for the tests where you come up a little bit short, I would posit that Daring Maneuver is a card that Kymani should take. Because if you pull a bad, like, you can go like crazy high up on these tests, and if you pull in TFA the -5 in that moment, it can still fuck up your day. So having a little bit of a backup to make sure that their ability hits, it's very valuable.
I did have that in my build, and I cut it, and I'm kind of partially regretting that. But there's also the Rogue Tarot card that, like, you can, I can't remember the name because I haven't used it a ton, but like you can exhaust, I believe, when you're gonna succeed by +1, like to boost your value by +1. So that's another little tool in the toolkit potentially. Because I think it's sometimes hard because I think, especially those of us who are just always playing at standard and have played for a long time, you just kind of get stuck in this mode of like succeed, like be up by 2 on a test as just like a kind of average thing, and then go up by 4 if you really want to succeed. But Kymani's ability throws off the math a little bit because you need to succeed by that X. So it's almost helpful for me now to be like, okay, what's the base evade, and then add that X to it. That's the real target number that I'm going for, and then try to get +2 or +4 over that. Just a little mental trick for my own sake.
Like, and you know, some enemies, like if you're trying to hit a night gaunt, like trying to hit a night gaunt with Kymani's ability is a thing. So having those aces up your sleeve is. I have
pulled it off, and does it feel good to just discard a night gaunt? Feels so good. I said that's their one weakness, but the other big weakness is having my luck when I'm controlling Kymani and keep drawing auto fails every time I'm trying to use the ability to discard an enemy. That's not really Kymani's fault, though. Yeah, that's my fault.
It do be like that, though.
Every time I'm up by like 8 or something, auto fail, there it goes. Yep. Yeah, I guess you just have to account for that in your plans, but yeah.
So I have included kicking the Hornet's Nest in my Kymani deck. However, in 2-player, in TFA, I have found that there are always enough enemies around to the point where I have yet to actually play that. Though I imagine in solo, where you're not seeing as many and as wide a variety of cards, and where discovering a single clue would clear a location, this becomes a much better card. Confirm? Are you playing Kymani one-handed?
I am, yeah. It's just a straight true.
This is the weirdest out-of-context sentence I've said today.
Hornet's Nest was another one that I had in there that I cut from it, so I cannot fully report on that, but I do think that's a card you could get use, especially in certain campaigns. I think you could get a lot of use out of that. Yeah, nimble for sure.
Nimble, of course.
Quick thinking. I mean, just all that variety of rogue cards that succeed by 2 or whatever it is, because you're doing that anyway because of Kymani's ability. There's the new card, I'll Take That, where you can play an item asset after you evade an enemy, or investigate for that matter. And you can reduce the cost by the amount you succeeded by. So again, it's another kind of by however much you succeeded card.
One of my first upgrades, possibly a thing I should have bought with my first 5 XP, is Blur. I really, really, really think Blur does a lot of work. I mean, Blur is great in general, but I think Blur does a lot of work in Kymani. Because like that first evade, you don't even have to succeed by a certain amount.
Yeah. Another card that I've used for Kymani is bringing back the Manatee, old Leo DeLuca.
Sure.
Because you get the 4 actions, so you could, because of the grappling hook being double actions, you could technically get 2 grappling hook actions in a single turn with Leo DeLuca out. If you're able to find a way to get the grappling hook ready.
To ready it.
But the main reason for me is because I find Kymani sometimes to be a little action intensive. Well, I should say especially in solo, where you're having to do everything yourself. So being able...
No, that translates into 2-player as well.
Yeah. So Kymani feels a little action intensive. Thankfully, they're in Rogue. So yeah, that's why I brought in Leo DeLuca to be like, okay, now I can easily like engage this enemy and evade here and investigate, and still use my grappling hook for 2 actions. So yeah.
Sneak By is a pretty easy early economy card. We'll see if it stays in later campaign, but it felt like good. It felt good early on. And then this is corner case. This will only work for some Kymani decks, but Ichtaka Ichtak is a great ally for Kymani.
I didn't even think about that.
Especially, well, I mean, I was about to say especially in
Yes.
TF. What are the words I'm saying? I mean, I guess if you're doing that thing that no one does, where you take an end campaign investigator into a new campaign, that could be possible. But
what if there was like a janky card that lets you grab a story asset from a different campaign?
Ooh.
Like some kind of multiverse portal or something.
Look. There will be a point, as there always is with a card game. Obviously, this game has tons of life left in it. But there will be a point where it is sunsetting, and it is time for Arkham Horror, the card game's swan song. And I really hope they get weird with it. I really hope they do some weird shit like that. That would be amazing. Also, just throwing this out there, random thought, have thought about it before. Doesn't belong here, but here it is. I thought it would be really cool for like the next FAQ if they would give us like XP costs for campaign or standalone reward cards, to be like, okay, if you want to include this in a standalone deck but not have done the actual obviously not have done the standalone, here's how much XP you have to spend.
That's brilliant.
I thought that'd be cool.
I love it
because there's some really cool campaign some really cool standalone rewards, and not always do you want to have a full playthrough to get it.
Yeah, I like that idea.
So, just a thought. MJ, Nick, Duke, hit me up if you need thoughts.
Yep.
I have many.
But yeah, for overall, I'm having a lot of fun with Kymani so far.
What's kind of your what do you think is a favorite ally for Kymani?
I think other than the manatee, I don't know if this particular ally is always going to be a favorite of Kymani or just how I'm running it now. But I'm running Lonnie Ritter and Kymani because I was a little bit worried about the sanity, as I usually am.
Sure.
After years of playing Rogue. But part of that reason, because I think I mentioned towards the top of the show, this was supposed to be a hidden pocket Kymani deck.
So I heard.
And so hidden pocket has to go onto a clothing asset, or armor, but clothing. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be including clothing in here. You know who's good with clothing? Potentially Lonnie, because Lonnie can, heal damage or horror from an item asset, and usually the main item assets that can take damage or horror are clothing or armor, so just all seem to work together. In practice, I haven't used it in pocket, but I have used Lonnie. And it's worth mentioning the clothing I'm using in Kymani is actually trench coat, which I haven't used in a long time.
Ooh, trench, good pull.
Yeah,
good pull.
So that's if you have been collecting dust on your trench coats, that card gives you +1 agility during evasion attempts, and it's a 2 health soak. So it's like, okay, I can bring that in, and then Lonnie can do her Lonnie things and help me soak some damage and horror in together with trench coat. But
nice.
But I don't know. There's not really, in terms of level 0 allies, there's not one that just jumps out at me that's like, this is the immediate Kymani choice, other than Leo.
Well, let me throw one at you, and maybe this doesn't just apply to Kymani. I think this applies generally to the way a lot of rogues play. And this ally has become my go-to level 0 if I don't have a better idea rogue ally. And that would be Mr. Gregory Green.
Sure.
Because for 3 costs, you're ideally gonna get I don't know. It's a pipe dream to think you're gonna get all 9 resources off of Gregory. Sometimes it happens. But for how often Kymani is going way up on tests. And I kind of play Gregory like I played Renfield. Some people might be doing these weird, wacky things to stack 6 Doom on Renfield and just make bank and be weird about it. most of the time I'm running one Doom on Renfield and just picking up an extra resource every turn. With Gregory, I don't generally bet a lot. I'm like betting one on almost every test, unless I like actively don't feel like I'm gonna do well on the test.
Yeah.
But any test where I feel like, okay, I'm probably gonna succeed, I just throw one resource in, and it just is like this slow trickle of gambling winnings. Is that what he is? He's a muckraker.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Anyway, Gregory has become a staple in my level 0 rogue decks.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. You can definitely see that.
So
I think this is often the case. The upgraded rogue allies are pretty substantially more powerful than the level 0 ones. So like you have your Lola, which is, it's boosting Kymani's intellect and agility, so that's kind of a double whammy when you're using Kymani's ability, which adds their intellect to their agility. So those are the two. Similar with Janae, who's just always a powerhouse. So those two, regardless of their abilities, which both of their abilities are powerful anyway, but even if you took those away, just getting a static +1 intellect, +1 agility is pretty huge.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's like the way to go, but one way that I have gone, was to throw Crystallizer of Dreams in Kymani, particularly because like Kymani, because you always look at Crystallizer, it's got a cool ability, but you have to shuffle a Guardian into your deck. Kymani doesn't really care, do they? It's like it's a 3 evade enemy. It's whatever. And I've got half my deck is events in this deck, so yeah, I've been having a pretty okay time with it. So that's an if you're not going the obvious good cigarette case route, if you're instead doing like pickpocketing like I am for your card draw, Crystallizer is an interesting include.
I haven't run Crystallizer in a while. I need to bring that one back out again.
It's tough. I've had a game where I felt like, I got good value out of that. It actually helped me pass some tests.
Well, there you go.
But the problem with Crystallizer is it's a really cool idea. It's just timing. Like being able to get that thing down and then also play the right events that have the right icons that you'll need later. Like there's a lot of ifs with Crystallizer, but this deck is one of the first ones that I've played it in where I'm like, yeah, okay, that did an all right job.
Sure.
Which is really what you want from a marginal card.
There you go.
I was just thinking to myself, does stealth do anything for Kymani? But then I remembered stealth is its own evade action, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's...
And it doesn't apply the modifier to like it's not per turn. It is just for that test.
Yeah, it's just for that test. It also doesn't exhaust it, so you can't do
right.
Kymani's ability. Which is to engage in exhausted. So
that's what we call a non-bow.
Yeah. Yeah, I did look at it at first when I was trying to think about Kymani builds, but yeah, it doesn't quite work out.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Delilah is on my like short list to upgrade, but I also think that's not necessarily the best call. Would you look at Delilah in Kymani?
That's an interesting one. I might actually, just because I mentioned there's a little bit of trouble there with needing to do damage to the elites, and Delilah it's not limited to non-elites. It can be any enemy at your location. And if they're exhausted, which you might be doing because you're Kymani doing evade things, it's 2 damage. Yeah, that's not too bad actually. I might give a look at it. And it does boost your agility. Yeah. It's not a bad pool.
One weird one that I was looking at, have no idea how hard it would be to actually get to work. I feel like there are a few pieces, but Under Surveillance. Do you remember Under Surveillance?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure we got to preview that card back in the day. So that's level 1 rogue event, 3 cost, attached to your location, limit 1 per location. Forced after a non-elite enemy enters attached location, discard Under Surveillance. Automatically evade that enemy and discover a clue at that location. So if you put this on your location and like, you put this on a 2 clue location and then play Kicking the Hornet's Nest, pull the enemy out, get 2 clues, automatically exhausted. It doesn't ready. You could Kymani it if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's some interesting combo ability there, I think.
Yeah. I have looked at it. I haven't quite pulled the trigger on it because I've been using my XP for other stuff, but I have considered it. It's mostly, again, one of those like timing cards that you have to get the timing right, but potentially it could synergize well with Kymani because it's anything that gets you an auto evade or like an evade without spending an action is pretty great for Kymani. And you get a clue. So,
and you do.
And keeps them evaded. I have looked a little bit at, and this is another newer card, Clean Sneak, which for each exhausted enemy at your location, you can choose a different option, either get resources, deal damage, discover a clue, draw 1 card. When we eventually get to reviewing that card, we can talk more about it. But for now, what's holding me back is it's 4 XP, which is a lot.
I did buy it. I bought it with my most recent XP in that campaign, so I have no idea how it's gonna work, but it's in the deck. I feel like solo you don't even look at it, but the multiplayer, I mean, I don't know of what count, but it feels like there might be more evaded enemies at that point. I think you're ever gonna get more than 2 evaded enemies at a single location.
Usually not, unless you have like some spectacular shenanigans going on. Yeah, usually not though.
But like fast, 0 cost, and a bunch of options, like that's pretty okay, even if you only have 1 enemy at your location.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right. Well, any closing thoughts on Kymani? This is an interesting investigator.
Yeah. Need to play more, of course.
Oh, we didn't do Agent Fletcher.
Oh yeah.
Look at us. Why don't you do Agent Fletcher, and let's talk about dealing with Agent Fletcher.
I hate Agent Fletcher. Agent Fletcher is an enemy weakness. 2 fight, 3 health, 3 evade, 1 damage, and 1 horror. Humanoid, coterie, detective, alert, and hunter. Prey, Kymani Jones only. While Kymani Jones is evading Agent Fletcher, reduce their intellect value to 0. So, the main thing there is that's really just a hard counter to their ability. So when they're trying to use the ability to discard Agent Fletcher, they don't get that, 2 intellect boost, or whatever your intellect is.
So you'd have to have a modified evade value. So you'd have to hit the evade test to begin with, which the first evade test isn't that bad because their ability, or the Agent Fletcher's ability, is not countering Kymani's. You have to hit a modified skill value of 6 to Kymani away Agent Fletcher.
Yes.
And that's not like the biggest ask.
Yeah.
It's not nothing either.
Yeah, you're really talking about like if you want that +2 number, then you need to be evading at 8 or the +4 number at like 10. So it can be pretty substantial.
And I feel like I have to say about enemy weaknesses in general is it always feels like there are more opportunities for enemy weaknesses to pop out at the worst possible fucking time.
Yes, that's the thing. Like when I said I hate Agent Fletcher, it's actually nothing about Agent Fletcher. Like, it's not you, it's me.
I hate enemy weaknesses.
Yes, like the stat line is fine. The ability, like, it's a little bit of a counter, but whatever. It's just the fact it's an enemy weakness. And every single time I'm all set to, like, pull off a move or finish off a scenario when I have like a couple of enemies on me, that's when Agent Fletcher appears. Every single game so far that Agent Fletcher has appeared has been at the worst possible time. Yeah. I don't like enemy weaknesses. So yeah.
Yep. In my TFA campaign that I was just playing with Kip, I drew the Guardian specific basic weakness for Mark, which doesn't seem so bad, right? But to remind you, it is a 2 health enemy that can only be damaged by weapons and tactic events.
Yeah.
And it takes 1 fewer damage from each of those sources. So like, it doesn't seem like it should be that big of a tempo swing, but if you have an enemy weakness that hops out when you're already beset, like if you draw 1 bad token when you're trying to dig out of that hole, it's just done. You're buried.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what happened to us that first fateful playthrough that I was talking about, is just we just got buried by enemies. So if that's already a threat if you're under threat of that happening, having an enemy weakness can just be an absolute backbreaker. And then on top of that, if you have a signature enemy weakness and then your basic is also an enemy, like forget about it. Concede the campaign.
Yeah. Just redraw at that point. It's not a good time. Yeah, I think I mentioned on past episodes that Kymani has potential of becoming my favorite investigator. I really think Agent Fletcher is the one thing that's holding them back right now. But I just need to play Kymani more. I might get over it. But still an investigator I like a lot. Whether they end up taking my top spot or not, they're definitely going to be in the top 3 or 5 or so. But
who's currently in the top spot? Is it still Finn?
Still Finn. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, hasn't been dislodged yet.
That's fair.
Yeah. But I just gotta make peace with Agent Fletcher, which by make peace I mean like include enough cards that I can just destroy him with damage as soon as he appears.
By make peace you mean get good.
Yeah. I mean make him in pieces.
Yeah. All right. Well, then let's mosey right along and move on to Darrell. Pull up Darrell here. Darrell Simmons is the photographer. He's our survivor investigator. He has 2 willpower, 5 intellect, 2 combat, 3 agility, 6 health, 8 sanity. You begin the game with Darrell's Kodak in play. Free triggered ability. During a skill test at your location, spend 1 evidence from an asset you control. Reduce the difficulty of this test by 2. Limit once per test. Elder Sign is +1. Place 1 evidence on an asset you control. And then his deck building is the classic main class, off class. So main class Survivor 0 to 5. Seeker 0 to 2. Neutral 0 to 5. And then obviously the Kodak, ruined film, and a weakness.
A little chestnut.
So first of all, printed 5 intellect in Survivor.
Oof.
A world first.
Oof. It's so high.
Look what I found. What?
Yeah.
Like, you're never going to play that card again.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Darrell's Kodak because it plays pretty hand in hand with his ability. So why don't you read that?
Sure does. Darrell's Kodak, proof in the pudding, is a asset, item, and tool traits. Cost 2, has intellect, agility, wild icons. Darrell Simmons deck only. Reaction: after an enemy or treachery enters play, exhaust Darrell's Kodak. Place 1 resource from the token pool on that enemy or treachery as evidence. The other reaction: after you discover any number of clues, move that many evidence on enemies or treacheries at that location, or not at any location, to Darrell's Kodak. So that obviously goes along with his ability, which spends evidence to lower the difficulty of tests. So it's one of those things where it's kind of not just the signature asset, but like integral to the whole way he plays.
And also that not at any location is pretty clutch, because there are some campaigns where there's treacheries that go by the agenda, or like this plays with enemies and shadows, right? Because they're not like at a location.
Yeah, they're in play. They're just
that's pretty good.
At it. Yeah, I've recently starting to play. I think one difficulty for me was just figuring out like how this thing works with like treacheries entering play and putting evidence on them and then getting them off. And there's certain treacheries where the timing doesn't quite work out, at least as far as I understand the rules, that like they get discarded by something, so then that evidence goes away before you can get the evidence on it. There's some weird timing for certain treacheries, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. And I have only seen and played Darrell in multiplayer, so I can tell you from firsthand experience that Darrell does a lot of this. Wait, don't kill it.
Yeah. Got to get a picture first.
I need one for my book.
I was really curious to see this design, having previously designed an investigator for my custom stuff that used a camera, which when I made Stranger Things...
Jonathan!
Way back in the day, Blast from the Past, I designed Jonathan Byers' investigator who had a camera. Back in season 1, he used a camera a lot. Whatever happened to the camera? Anyway...
he got a girlfriend.
Yeah, then the hobbies go by the wayside. But
true story.
But yeah, so it's definitely, it definitely hits that aspect of like, okay, I gotta actually like capture this on film first. But yeah, one is obviously the 5 intellect that just like he immediately screams Clover right off the bat. And even if you did nothing else, the 5 intellect is going to get you a long way by itself. But I really find the kind of reduce the difficulty of this test by 2 ability very useful, obviously, because it's any test. Like, it's not investigation specific. It's not even Darrell specific for that matter. It can be any skill test at your location, so it could be another investigator there. So it's just very like flexible and useful as long as you got the evidence to spin.
Well, and what's interesting is you might look at an investigator like this and be like, okay, cool, like this is how he does what he does. But then also he's got 5 intellect.
Yeah. Yep.
So, like, it's almost like aside from a couple of the cards that we'll talk about when we get to the Survivor stuff, you're using those on kind of your ancillary tests more often than not, like your things in Mythos, or if you have to try to evade. It's interesting.
For sure. Yeah. And it's one of those things, like, it could be a +2 a boost, let's say, to a skill test. But the fact that it's reducing the difficulty, like, has a few kind of nuances that make it better in some ways. Like, one is the thing we've been talking about since the core set because of Flashlight, which is if you could reduce the test to 0, then you're pretty much going to succeed unless you auto-fail it. So that's one part of it, but the other part of it is the few kind of survivor cards that have come out in Scarlet Keys that go along with that style.
Yeah. So before we get too far in, let's also talk about Ruined Film. So Ruined Film is Darrell's weakness. It is a treachery. It has blunder traded. Revelation. Remove 4 evidence from cards you control. For each evidence you cannot remove in this way, take a horror. So that's interesting. So it's hitting his bigger pool, which is nice. But also it's swinging a little hard. Like, if it catches you early in the game before you've built up, this is just kind of a punch.
Yeah.
It's just right in the gut.
I mean, it could just be 4 horror in the face, theoretically.
And if you've already in the thick of it, Wait, hang on. Is that the word you conjugate? No.
The thick of
if you've in the thick of it.
Well, there's the episode title.
there's no good way to make that a past tense. But if you've already done that, and chances are, if you are playing in the thick of it in Darrell, you took horror, then this hits really hard early game. Holy shit.
4 is a big number. It has removed 4 evidence from me, which it doesn't feel good because it's not like you get the evidence for free usually. Like you got to do a little bit of work for it. So
yeah, you're hustling for it.
Yeah. I mean, in the grander scheme, there's probably worse weaknesses, but it's not nothing.
Yeah. So, bears mentioning that I think before the release of this box where Darrell was in it and we have like things with evidence, there's only one card in the game prior to this that has evidence as its thing, right? And that was Hawkeye, folding camera. Is that accurate?
I'm trying to think. I can neither confirm nor deny the accuracy, but I think so.
That's my hip shot. Yeah. I don't remember anything else before that. Yeah. So I mean that like he's the photographer. Obviously, you're looking at that anyway. So like, good on him. That's a really good include. But it's really interesting with the way that card works. It used to be once you get 3 evidence on it. Okay, cool. It's now it's just sitting there in a static buff. It's not going to do anything else. But now in Darrell, like I'll ride that card with like 2 evidence on it and like use up the excess. Like I'll even get it down to 1 evidence sometimes because he doesn't necessarily need the help with the intellect boost. So it really, really changes the dynamic and how that card in particular plays, which I thought was pretty ingenious.
Yeah, the Hawkeye folding camera is almost like the second signature for Darrell. The way, I mean, which is fitting. It's another camera. He's like dual wielding cameras at this point, but like that's usually I'm getting as much evidence from that as his Kodak, if not more, usually. So yeah, especially in lower player counts where you're peeling the last clue off locations pretty often.
I mean, I have to say, like, Darrell's pretty resilient. Like like I mentioned, with the evidence, often you're using that to knock down the difficulty of Mythos tests or encounter tests in general, like just stuff you might have to do on locations or enemies or acts or events or, what have you. When Nick and I were playing, Kymani was kind of beset by enemies. So there was a little bit where Darrell actually had to step up and do some enemy management. Yeah. And Darrell, with minimal help, can evade at an effective 5, which is pretty solid when you already have a 5 intellect.
Yeah. It just goes back to the fact that his ability is just so versatile. Like, you can use it to evade, even though he has 2 willpower. You can use it against treacheries. I think resilience a good word. That like, not only does Darrell have the 5 intellect, but just this super versatile tool to counter all these different things you might face. So the only thing that really can slow you down in that respect is just not getting enough evidence or having to spend evidence for other things. I don't know how have you found the evidence generation has gone for you? I for my part, I think it's been pretty decent. Like, I haven't been evidence starved, but
no, I mean, like, I've generally had it around. It's not been so abundant that I can just like toss it at every test.
Yeah.
I'd say it's a lot harder to get evidence. I don't know if harder is the right word, but it's a lot more, it requires more thought and planning to get evidence with the Kodak than in those games where you get the early game Hawkeye and you're just getting it by doing what you're doing already.
Yeah.
Where, because the Hawkeye, you're clearing clues anyway, whatever, it's going to get evidence. With the Kodak, you've kind of got to think about it a little bit more. So it kind of depends. I'll just say that getting the Hawkeye early has made a big difference in the games I've played with Darrell.
Yes, 100%. The Kodak is a little tricky because one, it needs to exhaust to take a picture, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then the bigger thing, though, is just, and maybe this is because I'm playing in 2 players, a little bit lower player count, there's not always turns where a target comes out. In fact, there's quite a few turns where, because you're just drawing treacheries that just have their effect and then go away. So you're not necessarily drawing the enemies or treacheries that come out there and can get evidence on them. So that more than anything is what slows down the Kodak a little bit, in my opinion, compared to the Hawkeye.
Yep, I agree.
The other card I'm running, though, and Darrell, to try to get some more evidence there, is Empirical Hypothesis, which is another of the new Scarlet Keys cards. And this is one where at the start of the round you choose a certain criteria. The basic ones, because this is a customizable card, are either failing a test by 2 or more or succeeding by 3 or more. And whenever that criteria is met, you can exhaust Empirical Hypothesis to add evidence to it.
So I took that one as well. I haven't had a chance to add any experience to it yet. So it's just like naked level 0 Empirical Hypothesis.
Same.
It's graduate level work.
Yes.
So I have to ask if your experience has been similar to mine. How often would you say you get through a turn and you're like, fuck, I should have picked the other trigger?
Yeah, often.
Is it like almost all the time?
Yes. I tend to usually pick the fail one because I'm planning to fail. Don't trust that chaos bug. And then, of course, those are the turns where I succeed the test by 3 or more.
Well, and you're setting up to do some investigation on like a 2 or 3 shroud location. You're like, oh yeah, I'll be able to hit this by 3. And of course, that's always the turn where like the big tokens come out. So
yeah. So I think it's probably one where it'll be helpful to grab some of the upgraded criteria.
Yes,
there's one where if you're dealt damage or horror, that happens pretty often, or if you enter a location with 3 or more shroud. I don't know. I haven't decided yet which ones I'll grab, but that will probably help.
Yeah. So, obviously, one of the big threads that I think Darrell is meant to play with the cards that came out in the Scarlet Keys is doing extra things when you manage to get a test down to 0. So my Darrell deck is packing many things that instead of doing your normal stat boost, it does a difficulty debuff. So obviously Shed a Light and Exploit Weakness that were in the box, those are absolute no-brainers because they're great. I guess maybe I might not look at Shed a Light as hard in true solo, but still pretty great. So you get 2 clues from your location and an additional clue at any location, and you automatically succeed. So that's pretty solid. And then I did like Exploit Weakness. I know we've talked about this a little bit, but you would either discard the enemy or the attacked or evaded enemy, or if it's elite, you automatically evade it and deal it 3 damage, and that's good for an elite enemy.
Yeah, this one feels good, and I included it in Darrell saying, okay, how often will I actually get to pull this off? Yeah, but surprisingly,
talk to me about that.
Darrell could pull it off pretty easily thanks to his ability, and there are a surprising amount of enemies who will be in that sweet spot of like say you're evading them or attacking them, and you can choose attack or evasion, so you can choose the lower stat that's going to get you in range. But that feeling when you're just able to straight up discard an enemy that's sitting on however much health it has undamaged, Exploit Weakness is really good in Darrell.
Yeah. So those 2 are no-brainers. The other ones that I included in my deck to try to knock difficulty down. Flashlight. Old Keyring. Winging It.
Yep.
I've got a Singleton Impromptu Barrier and not makeshift weapon.
Improvised weapon.
Improvised weapon. Thank you. I've yet to really make either of those sing. Like, I feel like their time will come. And in this deck, because I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna want to get those into my discard pile. I ended up taking Idol of Xanatos, which we're going to talk about this when we get to actual Survivor reviews. But there's so many cool things going on here. I'm fairly certain this is a Gargoyles reference because I think the charm itself is like a gargoyle head. And then on top of that, I only just realized recently that this is straight up a Patrice card. It's a Patrice card in mechanics, and I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be Patrice in her white dress on the art. So that's fun. Anyway, so I've been using that to discard my improvised events into my discard pile so that I can actually use them for their cool effects, as opposed to the classic, like, you play it once just for the -1 and then you play it the second time for the cool thing.
Yeah, I have those in my deck as well. I found Winging It for sure has been very useful just because Darrell's like my Clover anyway, and I imagine in most cases he will be.
Yeah, Winging It's good in like every deck.
Yeah. The other thing I'm doing with Darrell is kind of, since he has that Seeker access and these cards are new, is like the putting the clue back on your location whole suite. And the card that really pushed me in that direction was Research Notes, which is after a player card ability places clues on your location, place that many resources on Research Notes as evidence. Hey. So it's another more evidence generation. Like, Darrell just feels like a game of evidence generation at a certain point, but in a fun way. So that's really the main thing there. By Research Notes, it also has an action that you can test into like 0, and for each point you succeed by, you can spend evidence to discover a clue at your location.
Not so bad. So bad.
Yeah. So, so I think the thing with Darrell is like he has lots of fun ways you can play him, but like the key things he can do, like the 5 intellect and evidence, will just get you where you need to go for the most part. I don't know. It's fun having like a dedicated Clover in Survivor. Not to say other Survivors I haven't played as Clovers before, but like, he is obviously the strongest out of the gate in that respect.
Yeah, because he can just go from word 1. Like,
yeah.
I'd say even Bob, you normally need some help to get rolling. Trying to think who else do I play Clover out of Survivor? Sometimes Wendy.
Yeah.
But she needs help.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's super solid. Also look at like the new flashlight. Okay, so first of all, hang on. Let's walk it back for a second. Exploit weakness. How are you getting an enemy down to 0? Because you don't have as many options for reducing the difficulty of an enemy test as you do for investigate tests.
Yeah, so one is Darrell's ability, of course. You can only use it once per test, so you're looking at -2 max from that. And then there are the other cards that we talked about that I can't remember their names now, but the minus evade and the minus the minus combat is, so you're looking at with just those. So one of those cards in his ability, you're talking about -3 is really the main way that you're able to pull those off. So if you're getting enemies with higher than those, you might not be able to do it. But those are the main ways that I've found personally. It's kind of just picking and choose who you're going to use it against.
Oh yeah, and then McDog points out Gumption, which I have on my short list. I haven't upgraded into it yet, but that seems that seems good.
I haven't had a chance to upgrade to it yet, but that's definitely soon. #soon. So
like, if all the pieces come together, you could, if you look at the 4-card combo, you could get a 5 fight or evade enemy down to 0.
Yeah, and there's also some other pieces. What is the Seeker event that lowers the fight or evade by -2?
Oh, you're totally right.
Yeah, I was just looking at that today, and I can't remember its name offhand.
Conspicuous anatomical diagram.
Yes, I believe that's the one. Yeah.
Okay, I had forgotten about that card.
Yeah.
That's a good include in Darrell. Though I have to say, definitely don't do that within the thick of it.
Yeah. 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 You have to have 5.
You have to have 4 sanity left.
5 or more remaining sanity. Yeah, but it is level 0, just a 1 coster, and it does it until it does it for the whole investigator's turn, essentially. So not just for 1 action.
Yeah, so you got like a couple shot. Ooh, okay, that's the one I was missing. Thank you, Ian. I'm like, there's definitely at least one good card to try to make this work against enemies that I'm not thinking of, and that was it. We got it. Well done, team.
Got to study that anatomy to take good pictures. Yeah, but it's a fun the reduced difficulty. I hope we get more of those. Like, this is one of those things where if we got like a big box, I'd be like, ooh, are we gonna get more in the Mythos packs? But now this is what we got for now. I'm not sure if we'll get more, but it's interesting little because we usually we get like the skill boost cards, but this is the other angle, reducing the difficulty.
Yeah, well, and I'm hopeful we probably won't get as big a dump as we did for this box, but it existed prior to Darrell, and it'll probably show up again after Darrell at some point. So it'll be really fun pointing out Darrell cards in the days to come.
Yes. Was it? God, now I'm trying to remember. I'm just like making a deep cut pool. What is the Seeker card that no one plays? Wasn't there another one that you
exploit weakness?
Yeah, is that what it's called? I'm searching it now.
I have that on my short list of upgrades because he can only take the level 1 version. Which is the one that made everyone go like, "Oh, I'll never play that."
Is it exploit? No, this is a different card.
Not exploit weakness. Identify weakness?
Expose weakness.
Weakness. Okay.
Yeah, you have to test intellect, and then you reduce the fight value by that amount. Which, hey, Darrell has intellect.
Let's add another combo piece to make this work. I suppose if you include a few of those, one of them's bound to be in your hand at the right time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I joke, but honestly, with the way he works and how little support he's going to need to get his intellect to a workable spot, like, you've got more space for that kind of thing, so.
Oh, and the upgraded version of Exposed Weakness, I forgot, you test your intellect X, where X is the enemy's fight value. And if you succeed, you just straight up treat their fight value as 0.
For the next nice. Event. Isn't that level 3, though?
Yeah, that one's the level 3. Yeah.
Out of reach, sadly.
Yeah. Someone else can do it for you.
There you go. Nick, spend 3 XP for my investigator, won't you?
Just to pull off this Jake combo. What else are friends for?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Nick gave me a thing a little while ago in chat, and I definitely had a different window up. So yes. He's with us on that one.
Yeah, I like Darrell a lot. I'm a fan.
I feel like there's not as much to say about him as there was about Kymani, because again, it's just one of those things where he's just like so straightforwardly good, and like what he's doing is fairly obvious. Where like there's a little bit more nuance to Kymani, I feel.
Yeah, like there's not necessarily like a huge learning curve and running or piloting Darrell, maybe compared to Kymani, who has a little bit of nuance there. But there is, I think someone in chat said like interesting rhythm. Actually, it might have been Nick. Thanks, Nick. You're still contributing to the podcast. Thank you.
That's right.
But yeah, I think that's
keeping us afloat from the chat.
I think that's a good way to put it, where it's not necessarily any like weird, complicated like rules that you have to learn or crazy combos you have to pull off. You can do those, like the ones we were talking about, for fun. But it's more so just picking up the rhythm of like how to generate evidence is really just what Darrell comes down to. Like, how many evidence generating cards are you going to put in your deck? What are the best ones? How are you going to get those to fire off? And then obviously choosing when to spend the evidence is kind of the big thing. What are you going to use it on?
And I feel like you kind of have to learn a little bit of discretion too, because sometimes you'll throw an evidence on a thing, and then by the time you get around to like we get to the place where grabbing that evidence is an option, sometimes I have found I have to leave it on the table because it would cost me a little bit more to go get it than I think a single evidence would be worth.
Same. Yeah. Sometimes figuring out like what you're gonna snap a picture of, because it might be an enemy or something on a different part of the map, or a treachery that you're just not gonna spend the time to go get.
Yeah. All right. Well, a couple of fun investigators. We got a couple left to go. Really good box. I'm really enjoying exploring the new cards in this box. It's been a pleasure and a joy so far.
Yes, agreed.
Some cool stuff going on. All right, Ian, let's move it on into a little bit of technical time.
Let's.
You want to do Snap on this episode or the next one?
Let's do a next episode so it's not back-to-back snaps.
Just doing the old snap tease like we did last time.
Yep.
Okay. Well, what's been grabbing you aside from Snap?
Well, another Marvel related game. Not Champions, not Snap, but a new one called Midnight Suns. That's what's been grabbing me. It came out last week, I think. Yeah, like a week ago. So Midnight Suns is a kind of, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. So it has tactical combat. Some people describe it as kind of XCOM-ish, but it's a little bit less kind of like, oh, here you're on a grid and like move around type thing.
It's more like Mage Knight, right?
Yeah, like you can move around, and there is some positional stuff, which is fun. But really, it's just like tactical card-driven combat, which is like,
I like all of those words.
Yeah, turn-based. So it's like, that's what, like, turn-based tactical card combat. Like, that's my love language. So I'm just like, okay, just yes, everything I want. And then, have you played? Are you playing Midnight Suns, Sean?
No,
Okay.
my game queue has so many games that I
Fair.
have to play right now. That's like at the tippy top, like on deck.
Yeah.
But
okay, so I'm gonna sweeten the pot for you here. So in addition,
I mean, I'm gonna play it. It's just a matter of when.
In addition to that, there's also like when you're in your downtime when you're not fighting. And I should say this is in. I don't know if I said this. Oh, this is in the Marvel universe, obviously. And so on your downtime, when you're not fighting these superhero battles, then you are back at kind of the headquarters and you're doing a lot of conversations with people. But there's also lots of outfit customizations, which is here where I'm sweetening the pot for you.
I can't.
Yes,
I can't. No.
So you earn like current types of like currency, I can't remember what it's called, from your battles, and then you spend that on like outfits and accessories.
Oh, son of a bitch. I'm so screwed.
And even like
I don't have enough time.
you even have like a room, so you can buy like a desk and couches for your room. So it's just a lot of nonsense customization, which I also love. So
oh my god, it's like Hades but with costume options. Do you have any idea how much farther I'd have fallen into Hades if you could customize how Zagreus looks?
Yeah, I know that really speaks to you. So As soon as I saw
I am
all
a
the
costume whore.
as soon as I saw all the customization options, I'm like, okay, Sean is gonna dig this.
I will sell my soul for some cute skins, baby.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it. It is hard for me to find any video game time because I usually prioritize other stuff like tabletop games, for example. But this is one that's speaking to me. So between Snap and Midnight Suns and playing more champions than I did before, and it's really a little bit of a Marvel renaissance for me lately.
Dude, same.
Yeah, it's I was kind of at a point where I think a lot of people were like getting a little marveled out. There's just so much Marvel stuff, but it's really the games that have come to the rescue that have actually reignited my interest between those three games.
Yeah, for real. Like I'm a little marveled out in the like MCU and accompanying TV series region. I don't know. I might get back to it eventually, but I've been playing. I don't want to say a lot of champions because I haven't been playing a lot of card games the past little while, but of the card games I've played, obviously I got through a whole Scarlet Keys campaign and then the Mojoverse stuff dropped, along with Storm. My goddess, my very first waifu. And it turns out she's great. She's really, really good, and she plays exactly to the kind of play style I like. I like having a lot of allies on the board. So basically, I just made a modified version of her precon, and it's really good. Her precon comes with a lot of good shit. I didn't have to change a lot. So been having a blasty blast with Storm and Wolverine. The Mojoverse scenarios are all really fun. I think they have a more distinct flavor than a lot of the Marvel champions I've played of late.
That's what I've heard. I've heard really good things about the Mojo.
Would recommend. And then after that, I moved back because I'm still clearing a backlog of Marvel. I gave up on Ronin. So I quote unquote finished the Guardians box.
Yeah.
Or it finished me.
That's how it usually works, I think.
But I moved on to the Mad Titan's Shadow. And I've been playing it with every scenario, and I haven't been playing the campaign. I'm just playing them as their old Marvel classic standalones. So I've been playing with Storm and a rotating guest. So I've been playing one was Wolverine. I have an Adam Warlock deck that's really fun where you just mill as fast as you can. So anyway, I've been playing through the Mad Titan Shadow. That has actually, I expected that one to be kind of ball busting in the vein of the Galaxy's Most Wanted box, but I've actually been having a really good time with the Titan Shadow or the Mad Titan Shadow. Ebony Maw is cool.
Yeah, I've only played the first two, but I had a good time with both of those. Yeah, and I didn't find them like frustratingly difficult or anything.
Yeah, and I rolled around to Thanos. I'd expected to just get my teeth kicked in, and he hits hard. Like it was not an easy game. Like I had to really get down and dirty and build and just maintain for a while I was building up, and he was just throwing Infinity Stones at me. But after a certain point, there's always that point in like Marvel and Lord of the Rings where you're like, okay, I have it now. Like as long as I can maintain what I'm doing, I've got this. And I hit that point with him, and I managed to squeak out the win on Thanos the first time I played it, which I did not expect to do. And I expect I got a little lucky because there were a few treacheries I didn't see that seemed pretty nasty. Like I watched them pass by as boost cards, and I was like, ooh. Have you played Thanos yet?
I have not, no.
Okay, god damn it. Okay. So there's a really cool moment in Thanos, and it happened to me at like the perfect fucking time, and it was perfect. Like I think the way the Infinity Gauntlet was implemented was maybe a little vanilla, but it does make him feel really threatening, and like his whole thing is really cool. So when you get past the point where you've like seen Thanos, at least you don't necessarily have to have beaten him, but we should revisit because it's a really fun story, but I don't want to spoil it for you.
Okay. Yeah, I do. That's kind of the box I'm currently working on, so hopefully soon.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to see it'd be fun to see a wacky version of Thanos where it does truly weird stuff, like replace your deck with an Arkham Horror deck. In true Thanos
It just
fashion.
uses the reality.
Yeah, yes. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like, how do you... Yeah, Nick says the fact that the fully assembled gauntlet doesn't let you do anything you want is a letdown. Like, not every game could be Versus, Nick.
Yes.
Right? Was that Versus where that was
think
a thing?
yeah. So for the listeners who don't know, I think it was in Versus, which is another card game. But there is an Infinity Gauntlet in there. I'm trying to pull it up so I can do justice to the actual what we're talking about.
And I'm pretty sure Nick capitalized the words anything you want because those are very specifically like active game text on that card.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it is appropriate, I think.
I'm having trouble finding it right now, but it's basically like if you collect all the... Yes, there we go.
Nick's got it.
Yeah. Like if you collect all the Infinity Stones, if 6 different Infinity Gems are inset on your side, you can do, and this is in bold, anything you want for the rest of the game.
So fucking weird and good.
Some of my favorite game text of all time. Anything you want.
That's fantastic. Anyway, so Champions has to be a little less wacky about it, basically. He's like using a stone at a time on you through his regular framework. And then he's got, you know, treacheries and abilities where like suddenly he'll use 2 stones or he'll stack up stones and like each ability hits you harder and he hits hard as an enemy anyway. So
Sure.
like, I don't know. I was really, really impressed with how that went.
Nice.
Mostly that I won because I didn't expect it. I hate to say this, but I think I might be okay at Marvel Champions now. I don't think I can say I'm terrible anymore.
I don't think I'm quite there yet. I still count myself as terrible. Need to play more.
Yeah. But anyway, been having a really good time with that. And then the thing that I mentioned that has taken over my video game time. So my friend Kip and I have been playing through the Souls series. We just finished Sekiro, which is in my top 3. Fantastic game. He blasted through that because it just, once he got through the initial learning curve, he just clicked with it and we just powered through that game. I had a couple other games on my docket that I was gonna play. However, just existing on the internet, I had several big things, I think, spoiled for me for God of War Ragnarok that I was kind of upset about. I wasn't actively seeking. It's just like the shit that shows up in your like feed.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I just got upset by it. So like, fuck it. Fine. I'll play. So I bought it earlier than I expected because I don't want anything else to get spoiled for me.
Fair enough.
But I am having a great time with it. It's really fun. It is exactly the sequel you wanted if you liked the first one. All the characters are back. The opening of that game just hits really hard. It's fantastic. Really digging it so far. All the characters that they've cast as these various mythological figures have been like their interpretation rather of these mythological figures has so far been just delightful and unique. So having a really good time with it. I'm only like 3 hours in, so I'm still pretty new at it. But yeah, been playing through Ragnarok. Have you played the first one yet?
I have not played a single God of War game. So
oh no, okay, so not the originals either.
Nope. I do have the one before this one that I bought on a sale at some point, but it's still sitting in shrink at the moment.
Nick says Noah Caldwell Gervais has a good video on God of War. I think Noah is, I dare say, Nick's favorite video essayist at the moment. I am 2.5 hours through that video. I haven't quite finished it, but it is quite good. Yeah, H-Bomb is faves. Yeah, that's fair. And he has a new one out too, which I'd highly recommend. highly recommend. It's such a descent into madness from what was supposed to have been a really light video. It's so good. Anyway, so yeah, God of War Ragnarok. I'll have more to say about it as I actually get through, but really enjoying it so far. And back to you, Ian. Get around to that because it is a really cool game. It takes a lot of. I mean, the God of War games are always difficult. They just always had that DNA in them. But the newest reboot of it really took a lot of Souls series lessons in the way it implements its combat and difficulty. Except that it also has a difficulty setting, so you can do that. And then also, it's like, so the original God of War series was just like fun, violent, depraved times in Greek mythology, and that's kind of all it was.
Sure.
The Kratos character never really was much. He was just like, he was just angry. That's pretty much it. But new Kratos has depth and a character arc. And like they wrote lines that lets the actor who plays him convey emotion, which is really fun. And like the central character arc, I'm not spoiling anything, you get this in the opening scene, is about Kratos figuring out his relationship with his son that he's kind of neglected up to this point in his life. And I think as the father of a son, I think it will probably hit certain notes for you.
I imagine it will. I mean, I've heard all good things, so I do need to get around to it at some point.
Yeah. So anyway, God of War, really fun. If you haven't played the original, you can get it for like $20 now, and it is worth every goddamn cent. Those games are fantastic. Highly recommend.
Nice.
All right. Well, I think that wraps us up for episode 143. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.